All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin tonight with some breaking news. The House has overwhelmingly voted to release the Epstein files, 427-1. It was unanimously approved by the Senate just now, and now heads to President Trump's desk, which doesn't even need his signature because it's veto-proof. We're going to have more on this coming up shortly. Also, President Trump welcomed the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the prince addressing what was Saudi Arabia's $600 billion investment.
Today and tomorrow, we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas.
There was some questions that weren't asked that I would have liked to seen asked, but just another $1 trillion deal for the deal maker in chief, and a major outage today on social media and websites worldwide. Web infrastructure provider Cloudflare says it saw a spike in unusual traffic early this morning, but doesn't really know why. A fix was made after a few hours if you noticed your X was down. But first, American culture is better, and I don't care if you disagree with me or not, because that just makes you wrong, but it's worth fighting for. Let's do this. Remember when I told you after Trump got shot, I told you it was us versus them, people who love this country versus people who hate it. It still is very true. If you ever look around and see every other culture, everyone else's values, their feelings, their gender, even their fetishes being put up on some weird pedestal, sometimes values that are not what founded this country being touted by other people who represent those who came here by our good graces and benevolence. And now they're telling us that they don't have to assimilate?
Because what you often hear that's accompanied with that is, well, you must assimilate. I shouldn't put out a magazine that's in 2 languages. Why can't you speak English? Why are my videos subtitled in Arabic? Why is my caption both in English and Arabic? People get frustrated by this. But to me, it's like, I actually disavow the use of the term the melting pot.
That's Abdullah Hamoud, the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, with over 50% of its population Muslim, which is how he got elected. 30% are foreign-born, by the way. So I'm going to tell you what most tax-paying, God-fearing, gun-toting American citizens feel. You do need to assimilate. And I'm going to be honest here. Playing the call for prayer over loudspeakers ain't assimilating.
And what I would tell you is, those complaining about the call to prayer, I mean, it's a very, very few. So we respect the wishes, and if you have a serious concern, I have to uphold the law across all board. But we've done decibel readings at these mosques, all within threshold, all within legal limit. And so for me, it's not an issue.
Yeah, it's not within the legal limit, and it's not an issue for you, Mayor, because you're doing what you want. But Christian people who've lived there for decades, by the way, long before you, Abdullah, don't like getting woken up by the call for prayer every morning at 5 a.m. Some woman recorded it above the decimal level for 30 days straight. And people are seeing this non-assimilation all over the place, especially with the Muslim community. Take this, for example. Muslims praying at the library in DePaul University. This is a Catholic institution. Now, despite having designated prayer rooms on campus, they just did whatever they wanted. They had no concern for others, like studying in the library. When they raised objections to these people praying in the library where studying is going on, the people who had issue with it were labeled as Islamophobes. Look, man, you're free to believe whatever you want here, and I wholeheartedly support you doing it, but you're not free to impose it on me or disrupt my life or on anyone else or change the values of this country. You're just not free to do that. And this goes for anyone who came here to foreign nationality, different religions, whatever. And some of these newcomers, like Muslim mayor of New York, I think, should not be saying the things he's saying. And now he's saying that we should bow down to international law?
I've said time and again that I believe this is a city of international law. And being a city of international law means looking to uphold international law.
No, dude, it's not. And this is what I'm talking about, Mamdani. You were welcomed here from Uganda. You were free to come here at our good graces. You're free to practice whatever you want, but I don't give a darn about international law because I live in America, an America that I put my life on the line for. And this is what the divide is here, because people like Mamdani forget why he came here or chose to stay here and how gracious this country was to allow him that opportunity. Instead, seeks to impose the same policies that made him leave the last country he was in. People like him, the mayor of Dearborn, Ilhan Omar, illegals that refuse to learn English, far-left Europeans that probably think they're way more elite than us. They come here too. It's the same thing. Anyone else is who's here, who thinks that, their way of life was better than where they came from? Better than the place that holds the values or they had or used to have? Leave those values there. That's why you left. That's why everyone should assimilate. Everyone. This experiment in freedom that we call America, that is afforded by you, by me, by your parents, their parents and grandparents that stormed Normandy to win wars, who built the railroads and the skylines, all of our sacrifices and our tax dollars that are confiscated every year by Uncle Sam to build this. All of our forefathers came here and assimilated through places like Ellis Island with our values of hard work. We spoke English and we were proud of the flag. That made us the shining light on the hill for the entire world, by the way. But somewhere in the last 20 years, it's been torn down. Not just in Dearborn, but a ton of places. I mean, crazy stuff that you couldn't even imagine 20 years ago. You couldn't even pass a law because you didn't even see this coming. Being taught to your kids without your permission or even your knowledge. Kids getting a school-sanctioned litter box in the corner because they identify as a cat. And no one's allowed to say, oh, hey, no kid, you're not a cat, you're a human. Go sit down and do your homework because that would be mean. And now we have two different shooters, Tyler Robinson, who allegedly at this point, I guess, still shot Charlie Kirk, and Matthew Crooks, who shot Trump in the ear. Both are in love with furries. You think that's a coincidence? I don't. Maybe stop letting kids be weirdos. And you see why I'm saying traditional American values are better? We didn't even have school shootings when kids used to bring their guns to school back in as recent as the 70s. This is a matter of values, and it's been slipping. American values. And mandated social tolerance of this garbage that's broadcasted on the airwaves, not on this show, but it's rammed down your throat through mandated training, like DEI training at your workplace, even at your home or your church with pastors wearing gay pride ribbons, or even at social gatherings.
They're aggressively going after drag queen shows. Mm-hmm. They are aggressively going after all of these phony issues.
And transgender people are just as good as everybody else.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And white supremacy.
They have nothing else other than racism and sexism.
And Islamophobia.
Press 1 for English.
You get online and you're on voicemail and you have to press 1 to continue in English or 2 to... I think that, that sort of thing.
A lot of us come from lands that were colonized.
That wick anybody else off? Certainly makes me angry to hear all that. Because those people came here and the second you say something, though, the second we, normal people that worked, we paid our taxes, we never broke laws, we raised children, we owned companies, and in my case, served in the military. As soon as we say, no, I don't agree with all this stuff, and I'm not playing this game anymore, they call you and I the bad guy. Racist, sexist, homophobic, istophobic, phobophobe, bigot, whatever. And I'm telling you, I am done with that. Strong, smart people are done being silenced by weak, foolish, ugly people that don't want to be offended or challenged or told they're mentally ill. Look, American Eagle stock didn't spike because Sydney Sweeney is gorgeous. Their stock soared because she refused to apologize for it, and good on her. They want you to live in shame of greatness in order to cater to or not offend the lowest common denominator. They want to bring everybody down, but the America I live in was built on bringing everybody else up. And those that didn't want to rise, sure, you go fail on your own, but not at the expense of society. So I'm done. I'm done being told that I'm terrible for wanting to succeed or be great or impose American values that made us great. We're not racist. We're not intolerant. We're actually the most welcoming people there ever were. We're not crazy simply because we want American culture to be upheld. Look, I'm happy for anyone of any other cultures to enjoy the success of us. But they got to honor and respect it because it's better. And if someone doesn't like that, then maybe this ain't the country for you. There's the door. Not going to apologize for it either. But it's definitely worth fighting for. Because this is it. We lose the American culture, if we lose our freedoms, and there's nowhere else to go, folks. America's the end of the line. And the people coming here to replace our culture with theirs know that. It's their goal. So I'm not going to be silenced on this. I don't care what you call me for fighting for it. Ted Nugent, musician, outdoorsman, proud American, sir. I love the American culture.
And I love you, Carl Higbie. All I can say to you, sir, is ditto, ditto, ditto. And what a great perspective I might bring to the cluster in Dearborn, Michigan, because I was raised hunting river rats and muskrats and coons and possums and skunks and squirrels down on the Dearborn Hills golf course. And all I can say to the mayor of Dearborn is I'm bringing my band down there at 2 a.m. and I'm going to play the opening guitar lick to Wang Dang Sweet Poon Tang and see how he likes that. The bottom line is, Carl, I don't know if I've given it to you in the past, but hereby celebrating 2025 Thanksgiving, you are the swinging T-Rex scrotum daddy of truth, logic, and common sense. Literally everything you say, Carl, I hear every day from the not-so-mean streets of America. I host hunting camps every weekend through the summer and fall, working hard, playing hard Americans, and every truth, logic, and common sense that you just said, that you always say on your show, represents the heart and soul, the deep convictions, Christianity, Constitution, conservative, conservation. That is the heartbeat of the greatest quality of life in the history of the world. And there's only one American dream, and that's by the great families who execute dedication to this unique experiment in self-government. And yes, those syllables actually came out of the mouth of the author of Wango Tango, because I am in control of my family, and you are part of the majority. But unfortunately, worse than all the horror stories you just articulated is the apathy by the Christian, constitutional, conservative conservationists of America. And until they engage like they did in 2024 in November, hallelujah, that we will still continue this embarrassing time in America. But I believe we are turning the corner. And I give you a lot of credit for that, Carl. Thank you. I love you, buddy.
Man, dude, look, I love you too, and what you say has always resonated with me quite well. But what bothers me more than anything is, even with all that on the line, with people's culture being vanished and new culture coming in, we still had, I don't know, at least a third of the country not vote.
It's unbelievable. We created Hunter Nation. Everybody should go to hunternation.org. It might
Great
sound
site.
too simple to be true, but we have proven it. Those 7 swing states, we have millions of hunters that we documented that heretofore had never registered to vote. And if anybody is down to earth, grounded, tuned in to a responsibility, a stewardship, conservation responsibility to God's natural resources, it's the hunting, fishing, and trapping families of America. HunterNation.org. We got a fire under the ass of the apathetic liabilities, because if you don't vote your core values, you're a liability, you're not an asset. Right. We turned them into assets. So everybody watching Uncle Ted and Carl, Uncle Carl, if you don't register to vote and absolutely vote in every election and get everybody at church and school, the deer camp, the bowling alley, the barbecue, at the family engagements, you've got to get everybody in your life to vote, because I believe the vast majority believes in God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, work ethic, law and order. Carl, we are the beam of positive light, because it is really the apathy that has put us into this place. I know everybody, everywhere I go, people bust their ass to be in the asset column, and if they vote, we win.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there was an interesting statement that came out earlier today, and it goes a long way. I want to go to what we were going to do here. This is like so beyond our American culture. We protect kids. You know, this is not the one right here, but we protect kids, and we've had this Epstein thing going for so long. You know, nobody cared for 4 years under Barack Obama or under Joe Biden. I think Barack Obama was probably doing the strings anyway. Yeah, but nobody cared for so long there. But now they care. And I always say, like, look, guys, we protect our kids here, and we hold those accountable who does this. Now, we've done it. It's going to the president's desk. He's going to sign it. But I want those people in handcuffs who went to that island and did stuff to kids. That's the next step.
Yeah, not only that, but we keep hearing how drag queen story hour is harmless. Well, we have footage of these perverted fat men in pantyhose singing "It Won't Lick Itself" to little boys and girls. Yeah. What kind of devil would think that that is harmless? These people are dangerous, they're perverted, they're evil, and I'm glad I'm a Texan. Now, it's not perfect. We're trying to get Governor Abbott to rein in their Texas Parks and Wildlife that are completely out of control. Governor Abbott, I'll be calling you tomorrow. But at least he's on the right track. And if he stays on the right track and he truly represents the working hard, playing hard families of Texas constitutionally, then we will usher him into his 4th term. But I got to tell you, it's not perfect in Texas. I don't think a lot of them remember the Alamo. But guys like me, Big Mouth, the founding fathers wanted everybody to be just like you and me, to be suspicious of all authority and demand constitutional accountability from our elected employees.
Exactly.
Duh.
Limited government, maximum freedom. Ted Nugent, brother, always a pleasure.
Good hunting. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Veterans Day. Happy Memorial Day. Happy Independence Day every day.
Yeah, Kwanzaa, too. You forgot that one. All right, coming up, manslaughter or self-defense. A young Michigan homeowner charged after fatally shooting a teen burglary suspect. We got 2A Tuesday coming up in just a bit. But first, a Maryland man pleading guilty to a chilling string of threats targeting more than a dozen Jewish institutions across the state. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Justice, Harmeet Dhillon, joins me in a sec.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm asking for your help in supporting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as it continues to pay off the mortgages for fallen first responders and Gold Star families who have died in the line of duty and left behind young children. Not only that, but they are also building mortgage-free smart homes for catastrophically injured service members and have recently committed to eradicating homelessness amongst our veterans. We ask you to join us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org and donate today.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. And we've got the same reliable coverage. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and... I can't feel my feet. See how we can cut your bill. If you're over 50, get 2 unlimited lines for $30 each. Call Consumer Cellular.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
We are Create. We designed the gold standard creatine monohydrate gummy, which can support daily energy levels, boost mental clarity, and build and retain muscle. Learn more at trycreate.co.
2 weeks have passed since Election Day, and one of the main concerns many Americans have 1 year out from next year's midterms, which are going to be critical, is the security of our elections. People still have serious concerns. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Justice, Harmeet Dhillon, sent monitors this past Election Day to New Jersey and California. You guys have actually made some of the biggest steps in securing our elections, but a lot of people are still really concerned about the volume of mail-in ballots.
Well, no, that's fair. And what they need to understand is that under our election laws, currently as interpreted by the Supreme Court, it is the states that make those laws. And so I know it would be convenient for everyone to hope that President Trump, who's a great president, and the Attorney General Pam Bondi would be able to snap their fingers and change things nationally. But that's literally what the Democrats tried to do when Nancy Pelosi was trying to pass H.R. 1 in the last administration. And we don't really want that. We have a system of federalism. So it really relies on people to vote at the state level and get better laws at that local level for now. Now, I think there are some things that Congress could do regarding federal funding and having better standards, but they haven't done that. I've gone and testified in Congress, and maybe one day they will do those things. But for now, what we can do at the Department of Justice is we have jurisdiction over several federal civil rights laws involving voting, and we are vigorously enforcing those, including in this last election over the objections of a couple of blue states. But we did send election monitors where they were requested, and I could have sent more if more people had requested them.
Yeah, and who has a problem with people watching to make sure that they're good? But anyway, I want to get to this. UC Berkeley has condemned the violence following last week's protest and is promising to take, quote, appropriate measures, whatever that means, against those who violated campus rules. I look at this as like, okay, but the damage has been done. Like, they've intimidated people. They accomplished their goal. But these people don't go to jail en masse.
Well, look, UC Berkeley's relationship with the First Amendment is kind of like, it's like stages of grief. Their initial response was, this was a mostly peaceful event. You know, we can all see with our own lying eyes, it was not a mostly peaceful event. And on top of that, the venue was only half full because UC Berkeley insisted that the Turning Point USA chapter there locally give tickets out in a way that allowed these Antifa thugs to actually get them and, you know, take up the space, which makes no sense and is not how the preferred way of doing it. When they got a letter from the Department of Justice and an investigation was open, they suddenly changed their tune. They have been very, they've hired outside counsel. They've been extremely conciliatory. And when I went there on Thursday last week to interview the head of the Turning Point chapter and some other witnesses and meet with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney, they graciously allowed us some space on campus to do that and even to hold a little impromptu press conference. So I would say that at the top level, UC Berkeley is cooperating with us, but what my suspicion is that there's this layer of administrators who just hate free speech by conservatives, and they show it in how they administer, how they allow these kids to have their events. And so we take this very seriously. I personally sued UC Berkeley in 2017 as a lawyer for Young America's Foundation when similar stuff happened over there, and they had to settle that lawsuit after a federal judge refused to dismiss the case. So Berkeley's on notice. It has been on notice for years, and we at the DOJ, under this administration, are going to make sure that every student on that campus has equal access to hearing viewpoints of any kind on that campus, and the same goes for campuses all over America.
Totally fair point. Here's the third thing that you're actually involved with right now. A 55-year-old Maryland man has pled guilty to mailing threatening letters and postcards to more than a dozen Jewish institutions in Maryland, Virginia, D.C., and elsewhere over the past 18 months, suggesting that buildings would be destroyed and people would be killed. Look, he faces a maximum, I think it's like 169 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release if he gets out, and a $5,600,000 fine. Look, you can't go around threatening people, but sometimes people are getting let out on bail for actually killing people.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a huge dichotomy between what happens in woke jurisdictions run by the left and what happens in the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division run by principled conservatives who believe in the rule of law. These are our laws. It is illegal in America to intimidate people because of their religion. And I, as the head of the Civil Rights Division so far, have brought numerous cases involving attacks on churches, synagogues, and many other houses of worship. And we're meeting with people of all religions and all faiths and telling them. That's the First Amendment, and that's very important. And so we're going to protect those rights of everybody to worship freely in our country. And we have no tolerance for this type of thing, because when someone starts with this, sometimes people end up dead. And we're not going to tolerate that in America. Right. And so everyone of faith should feel very comfortable and confident that this Department of Justice under Pam Bondi and under this administration under President Trump stands with all people of faith in America.
Yeah, and you want to talk about it? Be happy to have you on this show and say, we disagree and we can talk all day long, but you start blocking that stuff and sending threatening letters. People like you step in. Harmeet Dhillon, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, the woman who moved out of this country to, quote, escape fascism of Donald Trump, right? Yeah, sure has a lot to say about how he's running the country now. Why don't you just stay over there and do what you said you were going to do? We got that in our Culture Clash.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
For 250 years, brave servicemen and women have been stepping forward to defend the freedoms America stands for. At Wounded Warrior Project, it's our honor to serve this generation of injured veterans.
I'd do it all over again, but people need to know freedom isn't free.
I am proud to have served for 20 years of this 250 years. It's just the screams, the smells, the vivid images. It's like a recording in my head, and I can still hear those screams.
It's crucial for our veterans to get the benefits they deserve. Please join Wounded Warrior Project. With a gift of just $19 a month, you will provide free programs and services that can change a person's life forever.
When you almost lose your son and to see him the way it is today, so thankful.
Call or go online with your gift of $19 a month, and we'll send you this limited edition blanket honoring the 250th anniversary of American independence and freedom.
In 250 years, a lot of good people gave their life for this country. My daughter, she gave up her health for this flag.
For veterans, rock bottom is not a pretty sight. There were plenty of days where I just didn't want to go on, and in walked Wounded Warrior Project. My goodness, 250 years, it's humbling, and all the donations that people give is so important.
He represents all the soldiers. They still need help. Thank you, he says.
Please give a little to those who gave so much for us.
For someone who left the country because of Trump, she often really does live rent-free inside of her head.
Be living what we're living right now? Never. Who thought it? Did you think it? In a million years. That they would re-elect the man who orchestrated an insurrection against the government? They would re-elect that guy with all the charges of sex abuse and the adjudicated rapist. Shame, people. Shame on what has become of us.
Who's we and who's us? You don't even live here anymore. Kay Smythe, writer at Wandering Wolf Productions, and Luke Ball, CEO of Compass Strategies. Kay, she left to get away from the politics, and she's still in it.
And I still don't understand why she thinks anyone cares about her stupid opinion. I mean, look at her glasses. When are we ever going to trust her on anything beyond that? You can tell by the way someone dresses whether or not you should trust anything that they have to say. Look at her. She looks like she's losing her mind. And she gets more probably clicks and likes talking about Trump because she has nothing else interesting to say about anything. She's just rage baiting. She's trash. I really think she needs to just get canceled. I can't believe we're still why? She can't even smile properly, Carl. What is that? Just walking around like a nut job.
But she thinks she's better than everybody for whatever reason or another. But, here's somebody who's kind of come around to me, Luke. Bill Maher, all right, asked about his decision to not return to stand-up comedy. Listen to this.
Also, I feel like it was a great choice because I don't want to be out there in this country, in this political atmosphere. I could get shot by the left or the right.
Yeah, well, at this
point, it's a good time to not be out there.
But here's the thing: is you're far more likely to get shot by a leftist than you are somebody on the right. And he didn't really start getting that type of hate until he crossed over to the right.
I first, Carl, have to say, I wouldn't say Rosie O'Donnell is unattractive. I just say she'd have to sneak up on a glass of water. Bill Maher out there saying that there's a potential for having this sort of crossfire on the left whenever you're out there doing comedy is just so indicative of how things are right now. He's kind of like a Civil War soldier wearing a blue jacket and gray pants. He's getting shot at from both sides politically and with this rhetoric. And it's really unfortunate. He just sounds defeated. The left sounds defeated whenever they're trying to reach across the aisle. Gavin Newsom tried to do it, and his own party came after him with a vengeance. I don't think they're going to make much progress over there.
But, Kay, you know who else came after, he was coming after by his own party was Fetterman. And it, like, wholly logical as he recovers from his stroke. Take a listen to what he said about, on CNN, by the way, before his fall, about the rhetoric of liberals online.
And when I asked my digital team, I said, you know, we're on all the platforms, you know, really what's kind of the harshest, what's kind of the most personal? And the answer was immediate. He said, oh, blue sky, it's blue sky. And the difference is, I mean, the right would say really rough things and names, you know, some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won?
I mean, Kay, this is, you know, interesting. Blue Sky was created to be all inclusive in things.
Yeah, well, firstly, let's all say a prayer for Fetterman in his recovery. I hope it is speedy. It seemed like a pretty nasty one. And yeah, I think every single one of us here, everyone listening, everyone watching today knows exactly what he's talking about. When I go on my Twitter feed, you know who I get hate from? Pretty much no one other than crazy leftists, most of whom are bots. I'd like to blame you partially for that, Carl, because you got me on this show, which got me then on Jimmy Kimmel. And that is the only time I have ever experienced hate on Twitter has been from Jimmy Kimmel's fans. Like, you know, even if it's pre-programmed bots, they're all psychotic. They're so mean. Yeah,
Luke,
I completely agree.
This is after calling, you know, Trump the most radical racist extremist ever for years. The left is now already trying to, like, turn the corner, okay? They're trying to say, well, Trump was bad, we disagreed with him, but he really held back the crazy of J.D. Vance. And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, the author of this thing may not be the dumbest person ever, but the dumbest person in the world better not die.
Yeah, and it's because they are trying to look to who is next, who is the next MAGA mantle holder, and they're trying to go after them because they know they're not going to defeat Donald Trump. They have tried over and over again. They'll still try, and I shudder to think of the ways that they have already tried to defeat Donald Trump, but now they're trying to think of how can they head this off at the next level, and they just don't get it because they don't have a replacement in their own party. We've spent over a year watching the Democrats just in the wilderness. The Israelites wandered the wilderness for 40 years. The left's on track to beat that record. I don't think they're ever going to find someone who's going to be able to lead their party.
Nah, negative ghostwriter. Kay Smythe, Luke Ball, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, how much do I need to spend to make liberals feel like we're being equitable? We're going to dive into those numbers next.
If you have wet AMD or DME, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. And your condition doesn't have to steal the moment. Long-lasting EYLEA HD delivers powerful vision improvements that can save your vision for the future. EYLEA HD is the only treatment for wet AMD and DME that helped at least 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. Don't take EYLEA HD if you have an eye infection, eye pain, redness, or are allergic to it. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye, or increased eye pressure. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke. There's still so much to see. Ask about next generation EYLEA HD, a treatment retina specialists trust.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
This is the story of the one who knows half-baked preparation leads to downtime that could bring the whole workday to a standstill. That's why she relies on Grainger. With professional-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure her team, and a whole lot of donuts, make every day a little sweeter. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello, this is Franklin Graham. This Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for? You're thankful for family, your friends. How about God? That's right, are you thankful for God? You see, God made you, He created you, He loves you. And you say, but Franklin, my life is in such a mess. I'm not sure I'm thankful for my life. Well, that's why God sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to save us from this mess of sin that we live in. You see, that's right, God sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to take your sins. He died and shed His blood on a cross for our sins, but on the 3rd day, God raised Him to life. He's not dead, He's alive. And He'll come into your heart right now if you invite Him. Just pray this prayer with me. Just say, God, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I want to invite Jesus to come into my heart, to take control of my life. I want to surrender my life to Him. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, call that number that's on the screen.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
The Chicago suburb of Evanston is poised to become the first community in the nation to begin paying reparations to Black residents.
California is a step closer to giving reparations to millions of Black residents descendant from enslaved people.
In the city of Chicago, we are calling for reparations as well as supporting our immigrant communities.
Here's a logical question. Like, how much do I need to pay in virtue signaling to be considered enough in their eyes? Because we already pay a lot. How many of you commute, you work 9, 10, 12 hours a day, pay your own bills with what's left over after Uncle Sam takes his cut? Of course, that's the standard. This is paying for other people that don't do the same amount of work for you. You know that, right? Like, how many get to live on the dime that you produce that the government confiscates from you in the form of taxes at gunpoint? Check this out. Look, I'm just going to go off data here. According to the CDC that was collected under Joe Biden, the people that you just heard from want you and I, who have never owned slaves, to pay money to people who were never slaves, but we already are. Do you know that white people consume in Medicaid? You know how much that is? According to the CDC's National Vital Statistics Report, only 27% of the population, white population, consumes one of our biggest social programs, Medicaid, while being almost 60% of the population, but pay 70 to 80% of the tax burden in this country. In the same CDC report, it finds that Black and Hispanic people, mothers, consume Medicaid at 64.5% and almost 59% respectively, while paying only 10% of the tax burden each, while also representing 13 and 19% of the population. So when I hear someone talk about reparations, how much more do I have to work to make your view equitable? Seriously, riddle me that, Batman. How much more time do I have to spend away from my kids to make liberals feel like we've settled a 170-year-old debt that nobody alive today ever had? Perhaps the answer is not confiscating from those who have, but encouraging those who aren't. Richard Stern, Director of Economic Policy at the Heritage Foundation, and Rebecca Walser, tax attorney. All right, Rebecca, uncomfortable statistics for people on the left.
You know, this is a very difficult topic, and I certainly don't want to act like I'm a member of the Black or Hispanic community to speak to it, but I will say this goes back almost to the welfare system, and
Yes.
it breaks people.
LBJ.
It absolutely breaks exactly. It breaks people. It breaks families. It makes you basically you are beholden to always vote a certain way because that's where your money is coming from, and it reminds me of the fleas. You know, when you put a ceiling on fleas, they eventually stop jumping, and that is what welfare is. It puts a ceiling on your ability to make and earn money, and you eventually socially condition an entire population, an entire races to stop trying. And this is, we need the reverse of reparations. We need, like Trump's opportunity zones, we need encouragement of fiscal responsibility and family units, and that's what we need. We don't need reparations, to your point, of slavery, where none of us that exist today actually had anything to do with it.
Correct. And then here's the other thing, though, Richard, is this kind of goes in tandem with this. The Democrats fundamentally don't understand the issue here on the economy. Like Hakeem Jeffries out there tweeting out, oh, we're talking about affordability. Democrats are fighting for it. Look at this guy. Okay. Like, can someone explain to me, maybe you can, what has Democrats ever done for affordability? Because, like, the Inflation Reduction Act didn't help that.
Well, they make it a lot more affordable for politicians to live off of your money. That's what they specialize in. But look, I think you hit the nail on the head there, and it's important to recognize that, look, they think that wealth is money. And look, money is great, but if I can't buy a home, if I can't buy a car, if I can't put food on the table, then what's the purpose of it?
Right.
And their entire political vision is to tax more and more from the people, as you said, who actually work to produce things and then redistribute that wealth to people who vote for them. And what they're doing is trying to create a larger voting block of people they give stuff to and a smaller and smaller voting block of people that actually produce the stuff. And that is clearly unsustainable, but that's liberal economics for you.
Mm-hmm. And Rebecca, we're talking about the cost of money, okay? President Trump just signed an executive order in March to shut down the Department of Education, planning, a lot of moving parts here and things like that. But today, things really started moving forward on this. The problem is the education system, and it goes more towards college, but the education system, they don't employ any active teachers right now, okay? They just take money and redistribute amongst the states. But what they have done is, like you were saying, they've made states beholden to whatever the agenda is at that time, which is economic disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, we have a massive race against China, and we're going in the opposite direction. Like, what can we give you? What can we make you, beholden to so that you're not productive, you're not reaching out on your own? You know what? Give us nothing. The best thing that anyone can give you is nothing, and allow you to become what you should be on your own without there are definitely social safety nets we need to have. People go through times, but it cannot be a lifestyle and a way of life. And that is what it's become in a lot of communities. And that makes them worse off, not better off. And I think a lot of the Black community and the Hispanic community are getting wise to this, and that's why you saw such a swing to Trump in those distinctive races in the last election.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. All right, Richard, Rebecca, we appreciate it very much. All right, coming up, while Congress pulled its punch on scrapping the National Firearms Act earlier this year, some lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling the Attorney General to write off the tax scheme altogether. We got 2A Tuesday, very interesting one next.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans. Compare drug coverage. Compare costs. See if you can save. And make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Compare plans now at Medicare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
What kind of gift can $39 get you these days? It could send someone overseas, drop them in their ancestral village, and give them a taste of their heritage. From mom's side and dad's side. It can open a whole new world of faraway places and fascinating people that make them who they are today. That's a big gift for a small price.
Do you have a yo-yo smile?
sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling and full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy, but Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping, a free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
All right, finally, it's 2A Tuesday. Let's do some gun stuff. Now, gun owners have been saying it for decades. The court said it in 1937. Congress said it again in July. And now Congressman Andrew Clyde, and more than 30 other House members, too, have put it in writing one more time that the National Firearms Act for suppressors and stuff like that cannot be enforced without its tax. Congressman Clyde posting on X, thanks to the one big beautiful bill, the $200 NFA tax that you pay for a suppressor on top of the cost of the suppressor is now zero. But registration requirements remain. Yet it was Congress's clear intent to repeal the NFA, the National Firearms Act registration, by eliminating the taxes. That's why I'm urging the DOJ to adopt our position in its litigation concerning this critical matter. Basically, look, folks, a law that was passed with the intent to tax you cannot exist as regulation if they're not actually taxing you. So, folks, let's break in and check out Trump coming out real quick. There he is, doing work. My man just goes. Yeah, that's the Saudi prince. There we go. We got some sound on that thing. Ben Solomon going to dinner with President Trump, and Trump works like 19 hours a day. It's actually unbelievable. And there he goes, in the building. All right. The man leading the charge, Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde. All right, sir, look, I am a gun guy. I'm basically a single-issue voter on this, so good on you.
Well, thank you, Carl. Great to be with you on Newsmax.
Yeah, so this whole thing, I get the argument. Makes total sense to me. We shouldn't have been taxing it in the first place, but here we are. Now there's no tax, but I still have to do all the fingerprints. I use Silencer Shop, so I do it all digitally. However, every time I buy a suppressor, I still have to go through this massive thing. I got to wait, 20 days, 30 days, 9 months, who knows now. Is there a chance to completely scrap the NFA as a result of this?
Absolutely. When it comes to suppressors and short barrels, the AOWs, et cetera, yes, we should be scrapping the NFA because the National Firearms Act actually is a registration database of the tax paid on the firearm by the serial number of the firearm. When you don't have a tax, there's no foundation for it anymore, so there should be no registry. And that was the entire intent of Congress when we did that. We actually added the elimination of the registry in verbiage in the big beautiful bill, but the Senate parliamentarians stripped it out, all right, saying that, hey, this is policy, but I'm sorry, the two are inseparable. Mm-hmm. You can't have a tax database with no tax.
And Congressman, I just wanted to say, if I heard you correctly, you said AW, which means automatic weapon. Is it really feasible that we could...
AOW.
Oh, AOW. I thought you said AW. I was like, oh, man, this is getting exciting, and I was excited there for a minute. All right. I want to get to this, too. This is another thing. It involves firearms. A Michigan man was charged after fatally shooting a teen. I think he shot at another one who broke into his garage, sparking major debates over stand your ground law. Now, look, I sympathize with this. When I lived in Virginia Beach, I had 6 kids break into my house in the middle of the night when I was sleeping, and I had to go to court for excessive force and malicious wounding because I defended my own home in a state that had castle doctrine. What kind of country do we live in if we're being charged for people defending their property for people breaking in?
Hey, Carl, I think castle doctrine is so incredibly important. Your home is your castle, and you should be able to defend it, and defend it with lethal force as necessary, because you have no real idea what perpetrators are doing, what their intent is when they break into your house.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too, is we've lived in such a society. I mean, look at Daniel Penny, protected people, and he was strung out in court hearings and almost spent the rest of his life in prison for unfortunately killing somebody that was attacking people. I mean, this has become such a culture, and people say guns are the bad thing. Guns are the only thing that makes a 90-pound woman equal to a 200-pound mugger.
That's correct. It is the great equalizer, which is why you have within the Second Amendment, its own preservation, which says shall not be infringed. And when you start infringing on the Second Amendment, whether it's by taxation or by registration or by legislation, then there's a problem there. It is no longer an unalienable right that shall not be infringed, which is why we have to protect it and defend it every solitary moment of the day in order for the Second Amendment to continue to protect the First Amendment, which is the strongest and most powerful part of our Constitution.
Right. It's like one of those things, like if you went back in time today and said, hey, write the Second Amendment like you're talking to a liberal 4-year-old. And I don't think they could have made it any clearer. And somehow Democrats still figure out a way to make it rough. Congressman, I appreciate your efforts. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, sir, it really does mean a lot that you stood up for this.
Well, thank you. We're not done yet. We've got more to do. There's more to restore. There's more Second Amendment liberties that we've lost that need to be restored. And so we're going to continue to work on it, so stay tuned.
You're the best, sir. All right, folks, some big news from the FCC. Surprising many conservatives, the FCC under Brennan Carr is planning to lift what's known as TV ownership caps. This means that major networks like ABC, NBC, CBS will be able to own most stations, kind of like a monopoly across the United States. Now, President Reagan started the caps in 1980, saying that no big networks should own stations reaching more than 25% of the country for good reason. Now, Reagan understood that if big liberal networks owned almost every station in America, they would control local news and influence local elections. Over time, the Reagan cap was increased to 39%, where it stands today. Now, FCC's Brendan Carr, who, by the way, is a friend of the show, wants to remove the caps altogether and give station groups massive power and reach. This was never an agenda point of Donald Trump. This is an agenda item of the big media and big Washington swamp. Now, Carr also wants to grant Nexstar a waiver so it can merge with Tenga and become the largest TV group in the nation. Who's ever running that could do whatever they want. Newsmax opposes lifting the TV ownership caps, obviously, and opposes the waiver for Nexstar. The other conservative groups like CPAC and OAN have joined with Newsmax to oppose the FCC's actions. Call Congress, let them know. Check out the story on this Newsmax.com. Call your congressmen and senators, let them know. Speaker Mike Johnson, obviously, Senate Leader Thune. Let them know that you oppose lifting the ownership caps and oppose big media consolidation and control over our elections. So this will be tracking very carefully. Before we go, are a handful of Democrats calling for an insurrection? Certainly appears so. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2025, could a 1929 market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 8 years in a row, home of the no-fee-for-life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
At Lumber Liquidators, we have the best prices on flooring, and we guarantee it. Find a lower price, we will beat it with our best price guarantee. We have over 200 stores nationwide. Find yours at lumberliquidators.com. Tell them Tom sent you.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and see how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
Yo, are these libs calling for a coup?
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly. Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy. Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
I mean, I was in the military for 9 years. Like, you can refuse an illegal order, but what Trump's doing is not even remotely illegal. What is wrong with these people? These are the same people that for like, I don't know, what was it, years, they just said January 6th, insurrection. It turns out there's like 274 FBI agents in the crowd. But look, this is insane. We have U.S. senators calling on military members to refuse orders from the president. Rob, this is like, I don't know what to do here.
They're manufacturing things like this so that they have something to scream about. This is all about the vilification of the administration and the White House. And they'll stop at nothing. They'll make anything up at this point. To have Kelly in there, I mean, you know, the Arizona senator, I mean, it just shows how it's an echo chamber and they all have to follow suit. It's
anyway,
really sad.
You got to bang an A block, dude. Take it away.
Good to see you, Carl. Thanks so much.